Welcome to the Legal Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Jillian, and with the Legal Learning Center, I help prospective law students save time, money, and stress on their legal journey. Today's guest is Angela Vorpahl. She also helps prospective law students, but in a very different way. So stay tuned to hear how she may be able to help you. And if you want 3 free strategies to save on your legal journey, visit legallearningcenter.com/money. Also, if you're applying to law school or about to, and you need an accountability partner, someone who knows your schedule and can help you through it, one who can review your personal statement and give you hundreds of thousands of dollars in money saving tips, stay tuned for the release of Financially Free Aspiring Attorneys and Accountability course coming in June. All right, let's get into the call.
Hi, Jillian. Thank you so much for having me. So I am a lawyer turned law school coach, and I help students get the grades to build their career on their own terms. And I got into sort of this coaching business for a few different reasons. But one of the big ones was that I sort of noticed that this sort of not even misunderstanding, but kind of gap in knowledge about how to do law school and how to do it well was persisting even 10 years out. And so when I went into law school, I had no idea what I was doing. And I just assumed that that problem got solved over the last 10 years. And what I was realizing was that I was interacting with a lot of pre-law students and law students, and it still wasn't. It was still a really big unknown. There were still a lot of questions about how do I prepare? How do I compete for top grades? What do I want to do with my law degree? And how do I make that a reality? And so it was sort of funny because I kind of fell onto this almost by accident, or backed up into it by accident, because about 3 years ago, I had all of these thoughts in my head and frustrations of the unknowns, like these gaps in knowledge in the industry, just things that we're expected to know, but no one tells us. So there's no way we could actually know them. And I kind of channeled all of these frustrations into a YouTube channel. And so basically what I decided was I need to get this out into the world somehow. And I'm not really sure how. And I became, at the time, I was really enamored with YouTube, which is, it kind of late in the game to like really get into it. But I was really obsessed with Casey Neistat, and I don't know if you guys are Casey Neistat fans, but he's like the original vlogger, daily vlogger. And I realized that the episodes, like his YouTube videos that I felt most connected to, were the ones where he was talking about, overcoming obstacles and not using, life difficulties as an excuse and things like that. And so what that translated to for me was, for the first time, seeing YouTube as an educational platform. Like, you could actually get real information and talk to people that way, as opposed to just, I don't know, like music videos and like short sketches, comedy sketches, and celebrity interviews, which I was kind of using it for before that. And so I decided to start making these videos, and it was so interesting because originally the focus was brand new lawyers. So all the things that you don't know about how to be a good lawyer and do a legal career when you start. And then I started doing like some higher level videos, just kind of like what a lawyer is and what a lawyer does and what the day-to-day looks like and things like that. And I realized I was getting so much more engagement from people on those more basic sort of high level videos. And the questions I was getting were from people not even starting their legal careers, but just thinking about whether they wanted to go to law school. And so I realized, okay, like there's so much more of a need kind of early on about, do I even want to do this thing? What is this thing? And then how do I do it well? And so that's what I started creating more and more content around. And so then when I decided to start a coaching business, I was like, okay, who am I going to help here? Because there's just this long continuum of, pre-law students, law students, and new lawyers. And at first I thought like, oh, I can help everybody. But then you start to realize that each little subgroup actually has very specific needs and questions and strategies that would be way too overwhelming to try to teach from 0 to 100, just starting out. And so what I wound up doing was I started a beta course, and I was just like, okay, like this is a free course, anybody can sign up. And I just really didn't expect that much of a reaction. And within 24 hours, I had to shut it down because there were just too many people that had signed up. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have no idea how to run a group coaching program of this size. And so what I realized through that experience was that 95% of the people were people heading into law school. So kind of, what do I do from day one to really take full advantage of this thing and this investment I'm making in this degree? And so that's when I decided, okay, like this is where the need is. This is where the focus is. And that's when I launched the Law School Masterplan, which is like the kind of nuts and bolts, A to Z of how to prepare and how to do well. And so it's just been so much fun to work with students and kind of like relive that experience, because I think for a lot of us lawyers, law school is one of the most stressful, like most damaging parts of our lives in a lot of ways. Like it's so overwhelming, and it's so unknown, and it's so incredibly stressful. And so it just felt really, really rewarding to be able to give people that roadmap and that action plan to let them know what to do and how to do it, so that they could overcome those feelings of just total lostness in the oblivion.
I love that lostness. But you said something that was so important about what you cover on the YouTube channel, which is that there are so many things that are unknown in the entire legal industry. I mean, from start to finish, we're told that law school is very different than undergrad, but we're not. It's very hard to explain it to someone who hasn't been through it. And so, no matter how hard you try, it's still this nebulous thing. And then even if you intern as an undergrad for a law firm, they never expose you to what it's like to be a lawyer, really. And then when you do it in law school, half the time you're still not exposed, and you're only exposed to one area of law. And so it's just the whole process is a little bit horrendous and vague. And so
Yep.
having a
Yep.
YouTube channel like yours is just so great, because it really breaks everything down into little bite-sized pieces. It gives them the information they need, and they can go from subject to subject, whether it's, again, pre-law or post-law, when you're practicing. And you're right, they all need help. And it's hard. It is hard when I think there's a phrase like, if you're helping everybody, you're helping nobody, kind of thing.
Right.
So it totally makes sense that, the course needs to kind of just narrow it down. The YouTube can still, I'm sure, help everybody, because even pre-law students need to understand what's going to happen on the tail end. But,
Right. Right.
but yeah, so, okay, tell me a little bit more about the Law School Master Plan.
Yeah, so the Law School Master Plan is designed specifically for incoming 1Ls, so 0Ls as they're called, and it goes through 3 phases. So the first phase is how to prepare for law school. So all the steps you can take the summer before you start to get yourself prepared, to know what you're getting into, and to know how to hit the ground running from day 1. And then phase 2 is the beat the curve system. So it's all about how to use your time in law school most effectively, most efficiently, to compete for top grades. Because without a doubt, as a law student, the strongest ammo that you have in your arsenal are your grades, because you don't have any substantive experience to really sell to a law firm or a legal employer. And so all legal employers will first look at your grades before they make further determinations on hiring. And so I think that there's an understanding that, yes, this is an academic field, like grades are important, but I think there's less of an understanding how crazy important they are, and how important your 1L grades are. So your first year grades, because that can absolutely determine, if you play that scenario out long enough, what your first job is out of law school. And so I think there's this sense that you can kind of figure it out as you go, and you can kind of take your time, and then what tends to happen is people fall behind, they get behind, and they're playing catch up with people who started off incredibly strong and incredibly confident from day 1. And so that is the biggest piece that I want people to understand, and give them the steps and strategies to be able to do, so that they lose no time on this, incredibly big investment in time, energy, and money. And then the third phase is how to land your 1L summer job. Because there's a lot of questions around that too, in terms of like, when do I start, and what are the options, and what does that look like? And I only have 1 semester of grades, kind of how do I sell myself? And so the idea is that it takes people all the way through the first year, to know exactly what to do, and then have this process that they can then rinse and repeat to use for the second year and third year as well.
Yeah, I am definitely a victim of that. I thought I knew what I was doing my first semester, and my grades were horrendous. And luckily, I had a top scoring mentor, and he gave me his finals.
And so unfortunately, this was after finals, and of course the questions are different, but I could compare how did I write my answer versus
Yep.
how did he write his answer. And
Yep.
the sad reality was his answers were a lot more simplistic than mine, but they got to the point. And that's what, part of what you need to do, right? Aside from actually
Yep.
knowing what you're talking about. but
Yeah, absolutely.
but it's how to convey it, how to do it. And when I saw it, it was so upsetting because it was like, I could do that. I mean, that's like writing to a first grader. I was trying to write to, a professor, and they wanted me to write to a first grader. So it was very frustrating, but it was super enlightening. And at the same time, it was also very comforting to know that it's not like I had to work harder. I just had to
Yeah.
work differently. And
Yeah.
if I had known that in advance, that would have been so great. So
Yeah, and that's what's so nuts is because, in the legal community is not crazy big. Like you can very easily get to know a lot of people really fast. And, just speaking with a lot of, colleagues and friends and things, there are so many incredibly intelligent, incredibly hardworking people that didn't do well in law school. And it wasn't because they weren't smart enough or they weren't hardworking enough. It's because there is a method and there is a system to study, to prepare, and to do well on final exams. And no one is teaching it in my opinion, in enough of a cohesive, thorough way to where these steps are broken down into tiny enough pieces that you can not only understand them, but visually see how they're being implemented. And I think, I think law schools are trying to be better about that. I think they're, they have some kind of like entering 1L programs, and they'll talk kind of at a high level about outlining, or they'll talk at a high level about final exams. But then I'll still have students come to me say, here's the course, here's here is the talk that was given, here's the example the professor gave, here's the example answer they gave. I still have no idea what to do. And so I
oh,
mean, it's crazy to think that, but it's like to that level of specificity of understanding like how this process works. And it just got to the point of I was so frustrated to know that it's, you've worked so hard to get here, like through college or through grad school or working in the LSAT and applications, and you're here. And then it's almost like you're set up to fail because no one is giving this like very, very clear roadmap of how to really use the time and the talent and the work ethic that you have, and you just need to channel it in the most effective, efficient way.
that's exactly how I felt. I felt like they were completely hiding the ball, even though they claimed they were kind of giving me the answers. And so, yeah, I agree with you. Now, my concern is if students are taking courses, like you said, the school offers some, or like yours, before school starts. With your course, I mean, is there a chance of extra burnout or earlier burnout, or is this actually just making things more efficient and easier?
That's such a good question, and one that I really was struggling with because my fear was I don't want I they need to know this information, but I don't want it to be to such an extent that yeah, they feel exhausted before they even start law school. And there's all this extra stuff you can know, and I've been very, very, very reluctant to give anything extra in the sense of what you nice to know but not need to know, because the need to know stuff is already so thorough and so extensive, that what I've done is I've basically very clearly marked the boundaries. Here's need to know. Here is if you have extra time and you just feel like you want to take extra steps, here are things that you can do to further prepare. And I'll give you an example. So, um, there's all these skills that I think that are helpful to becoming a successful law student and a successful lawyer. And some of those are things like writing skills, public speaking skills, typing skills, speed reading skills. Okay, so all of those, yes, those are nice to have. They also take time to develop, and so I don't want to pretend like you can just become an awesome public speaker in a week. That being said, I do have students come to me, and the most extreme example of this was someone who came to me who said he had already taken the LSAT. He's, in his 30s, he's a professional, he's working, he decided to apply for the next law school cycle, so the 2022 cycle. And he said, I basically have 18 months to prepare for law school. Every lawyer I talk to says there's nothing I can do to prepare. I cannot believe that that's true. Like, what can I do?
Yeah.
And so I was in a situation where I was like, to be completely honest, I've never thought about an 18-month law school prep plan. I do think it's possible. And we walked through and like broke down the things that I thought that he could work on, depending on how much, how many hours per week he wanted to put into it. And a lot of that stuff was not the nitty gritty of exactly what to do day one in terms of like reading in class and outlining, because that needs, in my opinion, needs to happen very close in time to when you're actually going to be going through the steps for that to really make sense and for you to get the biggest return on your time investment. And so so there are definitely other things you can do, but I'm very, very like aware and cautious about putting too much on people's plates. Because again, the things you need to know are already so extensive that putting any nice to know stuff, I actually think, like to your point, is more detrimental to a lot of people than helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I was so burnt out by May. And again, I could have definitely used some help. But yeah, it would have to be very specific because adding on to that plate would have just been too much. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
great that I mean, I'm sure you're aware of it, but yes, it's great to hear you're aware of it. So
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing too, I think that's really important is that, and this is something that I realized, when I was creating the program, I was like, oh, I can just create the program, teach these things, and then walk away. They have all the tools they need. And what I realized was, oh, no, 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 no. Like, learning it is one thing, but having someone walk with you through the process as you're going through it is a completely different level of support and understanding. So even if and I literally had students tell me this, like, even though I know how to outline, I know all the steps, I still had such resistance and a mental block around it that I didn't even start, even though I knew that I should. And so I asked them, would it be helpful if we walked through it in real time? Like, you literally see me, taking a piece of your class notes and outlining, and then they'd be like, yes, that would be so helpful. So that's what I implemented. Like, okay, it's not enough just to teach it. It's not enough just to know it. There needs to be like this ongoing support system there so that if when you hit resistance, which is inevitable for all of us, or you still have those doubts and fears of like, am I doing this right? I know there's this one big exam at the end of the semester that's, in most cases 100% of my grade. Like it just is helpful to hear somebody say, yes, you're on the right track. Yes, you're doing the right thing, and get that positive feedback. Cause in law school, you just don't have that. That's like one of the things that makes it so difficult is you're alone and you're kind of floating and you're just hopeful that what you're doing is the right thing. And there's no way to know until you get that grade.
for sure, it's such a like travesty that 100% of your grade is a final. There's no way to see if you're doing okay along the way. And you either are outlining correctly or not correctly, and you don't really
Right.
know until it's too late. And even if
Right.
you're doing it correctly, again, you don't know if you're writing the exam correctly. And so it's a mess.
Totally.
So
Totally.
I can totally see the value of having someone just by your side, little like Jiminy Cricket on your shoulder kind of thing.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
So I know we were talking before too about imposter syndrome and how this is just kind of rampant throughout every step of the legal community. As far as when you're applying, I think it's kind of running in the background. And then when you show up at orientation, it's there. And your first day, when we're not passing out syllabi, we are working on our first day. And you're just like, wow, okay, we really are. They told me we were, but I didn't believe them. I mean,
Right.
even in college, they handed out syllabi on the first day. And, and then again, if you have those bad grades come in, and so again, you feel it's just a constant rampant thing throughout law school. So
Yep.
I know you've addressed like every topic on earth on your YouTube. So, so what do you think about the imposter syndrome? How can we get around this? What advice do you have for us?
Yeah. So I think that imposter syndrome is such an interesting topic because I love diving into like these psychological aspects of what makes us tick and how we function. And a few thoughts here. So I think that there are certain things that lend themselves to creating this feeling of imposter syndrome, specifically in law school, specifically for law students. And then as we were sort of talking through this, I thought of kind of 5 ways that we can use to combat this and kind of have an answer for these thoughts that I know are very common in our brains. And so in terms of why we think this, or I think what the sources are and why this thing is caused are a few things. So for a lot of law students, and a lot of, including the students that I coach, a lot of people were at the top of their class. So got very good grades in high school, in college, if they went to grad school. And so for the first time, and I guess very important part here too, a lot of the students that tell me this say that they didn't really have to work that hard, that they were able to sort of rely on, their intelligence or their ability to memorize or cram at the last minute. And so they were able to get A's and be at the top of their class without putting in a lot of effort and energy. And so when you get to law school, because of the type of work and the way that it's taught, for a lot of us, it's sort of like hitting a wall for the first time, where those types of study tactics don't work anymore. And we can't rely on sort of like brute force and like white knuckling to get us through it anymore. And so I think that sort of like come to Jesus moment is like very tough for a lot of us, because we've just been so comfortable in our abilities up until that point. So I think that's a big part of it. I think another part of it too, that a lot of people maybe know but don't fully grasp until they get to law school, is just how impressive the people around them are. And so again, like a lot of us were at the top of our classes, but then in law school, you get sort of this self-selected pool of people who were also at the top of their classes and like very hardworking and very motivated and very high achieving. And so I think a lot of us kind of look around and, terribly overused analogy, but like big fish in small ponds, and now a tiny fish in a big pond in terms of like our abilities and the abilities of the people around us. So I think that that's a big like shock factor as well.
Yeah.
And then we were kind of talking about this, but just like the work and the type of work and the amount of work for law school too, I think is a very big shock. And so the work itself, like reading through the cases, it's incredibly dense. It's incredibly confusing and convoluted. And there's so much of it. And there just is so much of it. And you're just inundated from day one, which is what you were saying, to really like get through all of this. And so you feel like an avalanche, or I like to say like, you feel like you're drinking from a fire hose. Like just from day one, it's completely overwhelming. And so again, a lot of us were able to sort of read for class or not, or take notes or not, study at the last minute and do well. And in law school, if you don't start at 100% from day one, it is almost impossible to catch back up. And so, and I think for a lot of us, I know I didn't realize that. And so it's very, very tough to sort of not only grasp the concepts, but also figure out a way to use your time to even get through everything, like even at the most basic level. And so those are kind of the types of things that I see a lot of law students, and myself included, struggle with when we first start law school.
Yeah, I'm like, it's just bringing it all back. I don't think I want to have this conversation.
Right.
Like the PTSD is coming. But yeah, you're absolutely right though. I mean, I had a friend one of my friends I met in law school, who was just not prepared at all. And she wasn't attending class, and she was treating it like it was college part 2. And she ended up dropping out by, November 1st, because she just was so behind and so off. And I mean, she literally started law school sleeping on someone's couch. So she didn't even have a place to live. So, and she was in LA without a car as well. So, I mean, it's just multiple factors, but you can't start that way. It's hard enough to even, stay on track when you are ready to go.
Yeah.
And everything you're saying it's absolutely true. It's, I think it was episode 3 I had Dan on, and where he talked about, he just skirted by. He always got the good grades and got into a good law school, and everything was fine and dandy until his first week of law school. And he was like, this is kind of real.
Right. Like, oh shit. Yeah. Like this is not going to go well.
This is not the same at all.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Absolutely.
I love this. Okay. So I want to make sure that students can find you wherever they may need you, because it sounds to me like they're going to need you. So what is your YouTube channel?
Yeah. So it's just youtube.com/Angela Vorpahl. And then all of my social media handles are at Angela Vorpahl. And so usually I'm most active on in the YouTube community page, on Instagram, and then in my Facebook group, which is Law School Network.
Okay. And then as far as your course, is that just generally available or do they have to sign up at a certain date and time or how does that work?
Yeah, so the doors open a few times a year, and the next time they're going to open is in June. So anyone who's interested in learning more can absolutely sign up for the wait list at lawschoolmasterplan.com.
Perfect. Okay. So I highly recommend you guys check that out because let me tell you, I think my life would have been a lot different if I had had somebody just helping me through that first, just semester leading up to the first semester.
Yeah.
After that, you kind of get it. I mean, yeah, you might need some help here and there, but definitely it's that first semester that's just
Yeah.
traumatic.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Angela.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Before we get into my top takeaways, a quick word from our sponsor, Juno. If you need to take out student loans, check in with Juno first. Juno can often offer law students 1 to 2% lower interest rates than the federal government, and with no origination fees and oftentimes cash back as well. Visit advisor.legallearningcenter.com/Juno for more information. My top takeaways from this chat with Angela. Number 1, make sure you're watching her YouTube channel. She has all kinds of important tips for you. Number 2, check out Law School Masterplan for help succeeding in your 1L year. Make sure you visit her website and just make sure you know all the information and all that's available to you. Number 3, imposter syndrome is so real for so many reasons. I don't want to recap the whole show, but really it's just important that you know it's okay, you're not alone. So that's it for this episode. All the tips, links, and so forth will be in the show notes. You can get a full transcript at legallearningcenter.com/Angela. And if you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, comment, subscribe, leave a review. That just helps the show be more visible to others and help those who may need it. Thanks.